be here, everyone. All
Yes,
right.
Lord.
It is back on
Don't worry about the time.
12:25. We'll be done unless the Lord says something different, no later than 13. All right, the mission today is, the theme of the day is, let's see here, chapter 37 of Psalms, in the 21st verse is, the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delighteth in his way. Well, anyone who knows me knows that I am a very, very dedicated soldier. And so just about everything that I talk about or I like to deal with has some reference or some place or something to do with the army. And the army deals primarily with orders. And so before you can get orders, when you first go to basic training, you have to learn certain orders. I wonder if Elder Dent still knows his first general order. I see no nod. The first general order is, I will guard everything within the limits of my post and quit my post only when properly relieved. The second general order is, I will complete all of my special assignments in a military manner. And the third general order is, I will report any violations of my special orders or orders to the commander of the relief. You learn those basic general orders typically within the first 2 weeks of basic training. Yes. Now you may wonder, what does this have to do with verse 23? But what it has to deal with is, before you can be given orders to do something, before you are given a mission to do something, you first have to be properly prepared. Now, if all you do is look at verse 23, it can be somewhat like what you would describe or see when you see Enter the Dragon. And Bruce Lee, come here, Gus. Bruce Lee is training the young boy, and he says to do something. And he says it should be like a finger pointing away to the moon. Did you see where Gus was looking? He was looking at my finger. Don't focus on the finger, or you'll miss all of the heavenly glory. Sit down, Gus. You have to be prepared and to have an understanding before you can do a mission. And since we are soldiers in spiritual warfare, we have to be properly trained. Bishop Gilbert Patterson used to say on Sunday mornings very routinely, our mission is to bring the word and the gospel to a lost and crying world. Well, that's what our mission is. But before you can take up a mission, before you can take up an order, you first have to be prepared. Now, if you look at Psalm 37, it is a very, very profound description of what you have to do to be prepared.
Yes, Lord.
Because if you look at the first verse, it talks about, fret not thyself because of evildoers, neither be thou envious against the workers of iniquity. If you're fighting the fight for Christ, you're going to run into some evildoers. You're going to run into some people who are going to be working iniquity. Yes. But that's one of the things you have to be prepared to expect and encounter, is someone who is going to try to interfere with the orders of the Lord. Yes. The second verse is, you know what's going to happen. When you go to basic training, you have to do push-ups basically every day. When you go to basic training, your first 3 weeks are called PMI, Primary Marksmanship Instruction, in which you drill constantly every day with an M16 or now an M4. Why do you drill with it every day? When you go to practice, if you're a thrower, you spin around and throw a thing on a chain, or you spin around and throw a weight, or a little frisbee, or a heavy ball, but you do it all the time. If you're a jumper, they measure down to see when you're supposed to jump so you'll know how far to be out So you can hit the board, and you do that repeatedly, and you do it frequently. If you're a sprinter, you work on coming out of the blocks on a regular basis. If you play basketball, you work on your shot. You work on your offensive positioning, your defensive positioning. All of those things you practice so that when it happens, you will know exactly what to do, so it'll be second nature. Well, if you get used to not fretting yourself because of evildoers, you'll learn they shall soon be cut down like the grass and wither as the green herb. Now again, you are getting training on what you're going to experience when you're following the orders that the Lord has given you. Verse 3 is trust in the Lord and do good. Yes. So shalt thou dwell in the land, and verily thou shalt be fed. A soldier has to understand that sometimes you may run out of food. Sometimes you may run out of water. Sometimes you may run out of supplies. The same thing when we're on the battlefield for the Lord. Yes. And it may seem as though you are empty. It may seem as though you are out. But the Lord is always constantly there to supply. Yes, if you know that S4 is coming with your resupply, you can continue on. In verse number 4, delight thyself also in the Lord, and he shall give thee the desires of your heart. So again, if you're going to be on a mission and you have orders that you have to do, you have to have the proper preparation. Yes, you can't do the work of the Lord. Amen. If you don't know how to trust him. Right. You don't know, you're not going to be able to do the work of the Lord if you don't know how to rely on him. Too frequently, we want to rely on common sense as opposed to trusting in the Lord with all of thine heart and leaning not to our understanding. Too frequently, soldiers have been killed in spiritual warfare and in real warfare because the lieutenant was trusting in themselves. Yes, Lord. And not looking to the person who had the knowledge and the experience to get the things done, to get to where the orders can be accomplished. We run into that in the church world because the Lord, when he gives orders, the steps of the good man are ordered by God. Yes. But the steps that are given to Brother Josh and the steps that are given to me may not be the same steps. All right. Amen. And I may not be able to tell. There may be some general steps that we all have. But the steps for me are different. The steps for Elder Dent are different than mine. Yes. The steps for my sister are different than mine. There are 9 Thuston children living. And all of our steps have been ordered. But none are identical. Yes. They are all different. So you have to learn to be able to trust in the Lord and communicate with the Lord. Yes. If you're going to be able to successfully navigate, because the first thing I learned as an MOS in the military was a combat engineer, the landmine warfare specialist. I taught landmine warfare at Fort Leonard, Missouri to help them out when active duty was gone. Well, when you're walking through, your steps are ordered, but it's like a minefield. You can have a point minefield. You can have a hasty minefield. You can have a minefield made up of nothing but anti-personnel mines or anti-tank mines. But it's a minefield, and you have to go through the minefield differently depending on the type of mine. You have different people who have different jobs that they're supposed to do as ordered. The private is the one that's going to be out there with the mine detector, metal detector, ears on, hat off, dog tags, everything metal gone, sweeping as they walk along, coming behind them, because if they find something that has to be marked, you have to get the private. It's not going to be the first order. It's going to be a private on the knees, going along with the probe. With the probe in their hands, when they push it, it'll come back if it hits something so they can mark the mine. Yes. Well, part of our orders on Christ, or orders of doing the warfare for Christ, is we all have different roles. Yes. Somebody, my sister talked about my father affirming her ministry. My sister's inherited some of my mother's ministry. She's a pro. She's the one that likes to be down and does some of her best work on her knees, coming slowly ahead. There's a pitfall ahead of you for somebody. I have to be the one to find it, because that's a role that she has as a spiritual mind detector. Yes. But we all have different things that we have to do, because somebody can tell you there's a mine there. But many people have died doing mine removal in Afghanistan and Iraq because they just looked at where someone else had previously marked the mine and not realized that there was a daisy chain. A daisy chain is you have one mine or one piece of explosive, and it's tied to multiple pieces. And they find the one and think everything is fine, and then they go through, and then they step on the other mine, and then they get caught and they got killed. Well, as you're following the steps that the Lord has ordered for you and give the proper preparation, you'll be able to understand the mines that Sister Hall was able to avoid. Doesn't mean that's the only mine there. I have to be prepared to always be vigilant and following those people who are on the minefield, clearing the way.
Yes.
And if you, again, delight yourself in the law of the Lord, He's going to give you what you want. Because there's one thing that they'll tell you about a soldier is, if you let the soldier know there's going to be a reward, if you let the soldier know there's going to be something they get, they'll always do things a good soldier will because they're going to obey orders. Yes. But if they know there's a benefit coming at the end, if they know that their work is going to be appreciated at the end, if they know that people are going to benefit from what they do in the end, they're going to work harder. So that's one of the reasons why the Lord wants to give us the desires of our heart. Yes. We want to be motivated. You want to do things because you want to do it, not because you fear doing it. That's why if you want to see a well-trained dog, and it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to find it in my house, is the well-trained dog is typically a dog that's going to be bred to please. Yes. And the dog that's bred to please, you don't have to necessarily go ahead and start beating them on everything and slapping them on everything. Sometimes all they need is just to be patted and say, good dog, good dog. You did what I asked you to do, good dog. And then they will lay their life on the line for you just because you heap them for the praise, which is the desire of their heart. Yes, Lord. But then if you're really going to do warfare, in verse 5, you have to commit thy way unto the Lord. Trust also in Him, and it shall bring it to pass. Yes, Lord. Again, if you're going to be a real soldier, you have to be committed. You can't do it halfway. Yes. You can't polish, well, we don't polish them anymore. But in the old days, you couldn't halfway polish your brick. If I decided to shave one half of my face, but I wasn't committed, people would look at me strangely when I showed up because I wasn't fully sold out and given up into getting it. All right. And too often, the Lord has a mission for us to do. But come here, Deb. But too often, we are so held up that we're not willing to sell out to go do what's necessary to happen. Stay here. Stay right there. And so often, the Lord says for me to go and reach for Chris. And I'm sitting here and I'm reaching for Chris. But am I committed? No. Who's holding on to me? She ain't really holding on to me. I'm holding on to her. I'm not committed. I'm supposed to be her husband, which means I'm supposed to be completely, and I am committed and dedicated to her. Yes, Lord. But too often, Brother Josh, I can't be dedicated to her and go along and saying, hey, baby, what you doing after Gus goes to work? Yes, Lord. Because that's not a sign that you're committed to doing what you're supposed to do. So when you're going to be a soldier for the Lord and following orders, you have to be completely committed. That means those old things that were holding you back. Yes, Lord. You got to say, I can't do this. Yes. I've got to be committed and get all the way to what is my mission. Because if you are constantly holding on to the past, if you're constantly holding on to sin, if you're constantly holding on to grief, if you're constantly holding on to issues that you've had, you can't be committed. And if you can't be committed, thank you, Jesus. You can't be a true soldier for the Lord who is following the orders that He has given you. Yes, Lord. Because then if you do all these things, He shall bring forth thy righteousness as the light and thy judgment as the noonday. So you're going to be, if you do what the Lord wants you to do, to get you ready to do battle with the devil. When the time comes, He's going to illuminate you so much that people will be able to see this is somebody you can look at and follow. We have leaders in the military who you can't look at and follow. They're not committed. They don't believe in the mission.
don't believe in the leadership, don't believe in what they're doing. And you can see them as dull, see them as somebody that you don't want to follow and won't follow.
Yes,
But
Lord.
if you have somebody who is committed, is reliant, they're going to illuminate so much, and it'll draw people to them. And they'll draw people and want to follow them. Jesus, the Lord said, you lift me up, I'll draw
Yes,
all
man.
men. Well, the Lord is lifted up.
Yes,
He
Jesus.
illuminates things and brings things to pass.
Amen.
Rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. Fret not thyself because of man who prospereth in his way, because of the man who bringeth the wicked devices to pass. Again, back to fretting not yourself.
Yes, Lord.
You know you're going to run into an enemy because we're in a fight. You can't have a war if there's not an enemy.
Yes.
Even if you're fighting yourself. The enemy may be yourself.
Come on then.
But there's constantly going to be an enemy.
Yes,
And
Lord.
even if it looks like the enemy is succeeding and you are failing,
All right.
you still have to continue on because you know that their evil devices are
Yes,
going to
Lord.
ultimately fail. One of the things they teach in the Army, if you do resiliency, is to have positive thinking. If you constantly go in and say, I'm looking for a job. Hi, I'm here for the job. I know you're not going to hire me. I know you dislike me. I know you hate me. And it's not just because of my color. It's because of my profession. And it's because of my family. I don't know why that man would give me a job.
Come on then. You're right.
If your
Yes.
mind is not there to understand and have the faith to believe
Yes.
that it's going to come to pass, you can't be a successful soldier who's supposed to follow the orders that God has for
Yes,
you
Lord.
individually.
Yes.
One of the other important things, Sergeant Major David A. Fair retired is one of my favorite people. Am I right, Sister Thuston?
That's right.
And he is one of the most entertaining, fun to be around people when he is angry because you are going to laugh very hard. There are members of our family that sometimes we would like to see angry because it makes us what?
Wow.
Laugh. Well, you have to be prepared to understand that we have to cease from anger and forsake not wrath, fret not thyself
Yes.
any wise to do evil.
Yes.
Because the spy that the devil is going to send in your warfare is going to come around to try to get you angry.
Yes.
The stranger that's the spy is going to come around to try to get you to come to wrath. It's going to do things to get you mad. Because sometimes you can see, Brother Tim, the frontal assault that's coming. But it's the sneaky
Yes.
thing that comes up and says something that upsets you that we lose our focus. There are some people that when you play sports against them or when you compete against them, if you can get in their head
Yes, Lord.
and you can get them mad, they never gonna go off when the gun starts. They jump it every single time because they are so mad when they do it. They're never gonna be able to, hey, I'm going not to name names, but there's a certain former All-American in here that if he was mad and it came time to throw, his steps were never right. And if his steps were off and he was, say amen, if his steps were right, if his steps weren't right, he was mad. The more he tried harder to fix it, what happened to his steps? They got worse.
Yes.
So the devil wants to come and make us so angry and so full of wrath that we'll miss what we're supposed to do.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to tell you, Brother Chris, every now and then my mother would get angry.
Amen.
Because of Julia. And I think there are a few times we felt her wrath, Sister Hall. And by the time we experienced her wrath, she couldn't even remember what we had done.
That's right.
That wrath. Say amen, stay mother.
Amen.
Well, again, the devil comes at us and tries to get us so mad and so angry that we can't see straight. I will tell you, I normally am a pretty cool person in the courtroom. But if you say something and it gets my goat, I may be very eloquent, but there are going to be some things that I'm going to say that I would never say if I wasn't angry. In the 23 accusations I've had of prosecutorial misconduct in front of a jury, Every single comment, Brother Jason, has been something that I said in response because I was mad at what the defense attorney said. But even though those words came out, we're supposed to be angry and what? Sin not.
Yes.
So again, what the devil's trying to trick us into doing is tricking us into sin with our anger.
Yes.
So we have to constantly be training ourselves, prepping ourselves, getting ourselves ready to say, you got me mad on this devil before, but I'm not going to let that bother me as much as it did before, because that's part of also a maturing process. Because there are certain things that some people say, it's going to bother you. And they get their victory by seeing you bother.
Right.
But if they can say something to you and you can ignore it and move on, they lose and you win. And it helps you to maintain some semblance of calmness and steadiness in your mind. All right. Now, if you read from verses 9 into verse 22, it talks comparably about what the devil is going to do, what the wicked further is going to do.
Yes, Lord.
But ultimately, in all of those discussions, it ultimately still comes back to what? You're going to prosper if you can finish the race. For evildoers shall be cut off, but those that wait upon who?
The Lord.
The Lord shall what? Inherit the earth. So part of when you fight a war, Brother Tim, it's about territory. I need to have this hill to control the valley. I need to have this ridge to control this acreage and these sections.
Yes.
I need to have, if you're really looking at the true way of battle, for the king of battle of artillery, they need to typically have high ground so they can see the forward observer who's calling for fire to say, this is where you drop the artillery.
Yes, Lord.
So part of inheriting the earth means if you're doing really what the Lord says, you constantly are encroaching on the devil's territory. Come here, Gus. Constantly, when you're going up against the devil and you're fighting with him, and the devil is trying to do things, he's supposed to resist you. And he's here. And the devil, come here, Gus. And the devil is there constantly. You just doing this. I'm taking back more of your territory.
Yes.
I'm taking back more of your territory. Because if I do right, I'm going to inherit the earth. We're going to inherit the battlefield. You can sit down, Gus. Because if you are in the right territory, if you're in the right acreage, it's very difficult to be defeated. So if you stand on the hill with the Lord, then you can see the devil coming in any way of egress. But you have to constantly follow what the Lord says to be able to do it. Because if you become the evildoer, you're the one that's going backwards.
Yes.
You're the one that's giving up the territory. You're the one that's giving up that fighting position.
Hello.
Then you have to, for yet a little while, the wicked shall not be. Yea, thou shalt diligently consider his place, and it shall not be. So you just think about where the devil is. Just think about it. But if you're doing right, you can think about where the devil is and know he's there in your way. Think about it. And what's it say is going to happen? And it shall not be. Sometimes we get so caught up and we get so held up because we can't think of where the devil is, and more importantly, where the devil is and where we don't want him to be. If you have problems at work and you think the devil is there, why aren't you focusing on the devil needs to be someplace else? Because sometimes that's all it is focusing on the Lord. Because if you resist the devil, he'll what? Flee.
Yes.
Why is it we allow the devil to live in our homes, be in our workplaces, be in our schools, when we know all you have to do is resist him and think about it being someplace else? And he's going to be gone.
Yes.
We definitely allow him to stay in our minds.
Yes.
But the meek shall inherit the earth and shall delight themselves in the abundance of peace. The wicked plotted against the just and gnashed upon him with his teeth. The Lord shall laugh at him, for he seeth this day coming.
Yes.
You know, sometimes it's pretty embarrassing when you start out and you don't know what you're doing and you're really lost. My first jury trial, in the courtroom by myself, my boss never even set foot in, got through jury instruction. And the person who was on the other side defending the case had been practicing longer than I was alive, let alone longer than the 2.5 months I'd been a lawyer. And I got up and gave my opening statement, Sister Dent, and I sat down. And Grover Bryant got up and said, Judge, can we approach? And I went up there and had no clue. He said, Mr. Thuston didn't mention all the elements of the crime in his opening statement. And the case needs to be dismissed. Well, that's not a rule. That's not a rule. He was making something up because I was new and young and didn't know any better and thought he was going to confuse me and throw me off. He was laughing. He thought it was funny when I stammered and stuttered and struggled for what a response was. We were at the bench in front of Judge Smith. And I was turning around looking for Don Scott, looking for Russell, looking for Michael Henson. Somebody could come and bail me out of this situation. But as he was laughing, what was going through my mind? If we could just get past this one objection. If I can get past this one stunt by lawyer, if we can get past it, I'm going to be the one laughing. Because eventually he's going to prison. And the judge is getting upset because of the stunts that the lawyer is going to do. So he's going to do more time. So I was able to sit back, and even though I was in stress and I was being a little bit traumatized, I was able to sit back and realize that the Lord was laughing because he could see what was coming. Sometimes when you have soldiers in basic training or in early training, you can sit back and see they're struggling and laugh because you know and you see what they can be. The Lord, I think, looks at us and says, I see what you can be. That's why I've ordered your steps. That's why I see what you doing is different than your partial triplet sisters doing. But your destination may be different. But the Lord sees the end state and sits there and smiles. Even when we're going through pain, even when we're struggling, the Lord is still looking down and saying, I can see where they're going to be. The wicked have drawn out a sword. Talks about their sword as their own. And a little bit of righteousness that a man hath is better than the riches of many wicked. For the arms of the wicked shall be broken, but the Lord upholdeth the righteous. So again, if you're following the path, the Lord is going to knock away everything that comes your way. And now when you start to think about it, once you've got the training and once you've got the preparation, you're ready to do battle. But then when you come to the military before they have orders, it's a real mission. Elder Dent knows about this. The first thing you're going to get is a warning order. And in the warning order, it's going to tell you what, when, why, where, and how you're supposed to complete the mission. The warning order is going to let you know what the enemy is that you're going to be facing. So when you're going out to do the battle against the devil, the Lord is always going to set you up to see what you're going to be facing. And he sets you up to say, this is what you need to really be prepared for and deal with when you're going to be dealing with this situation in the warning order. But before you go out to battle, there's quite frequently we run into a situation where items in the world and the field have changed. So then that comes a frag order. That's a fragmented order that changes or gives you an update on the situation. It may have been you thought you were going to a church where the people really love the Lord. But now we've discovered before you go, the intel says ain't nobody there saved, and they need to hear a different message. The people that you're dealing with, your audience, may have changed. So you have to temper what you're doing. If you're running track, if you're running on a hard track, you may want to change your spikes. You may come out of the blocks a little differently. If the wind is different, you may have wind dated times and it affects what you do. That's what the frag order is going to do. Tell you how you have to adjust. You know, if you're running into the wind, you want to be compact. But if the wind's at your back, you want to be active so you can catch the wind. And then finally, the Lord's going to give you an op order. The op order is going to be, it's time for you to execute. This is where you're supposed to be now. And this is how you're supposed to finish it. And when you finished it, your mission, you have to fill out a travel voucher. Because when your steps are ordered and you meet your mission, you get a travel voucher. And just like we get a travel voucher. And that my mission may be one thing, but the Lord had a mission. And he came from on the travel voucher. Imagine the Lord had to mark it down. Said home of record. You mark HOR on your travel voucher. And on HOR, that means home of record. So I imagine that Jesus had heaven marked as his home of record. Then you have to be told, how are you going to do what is your mission? And on the mission, it may say how you're going to get there. Maybe POV, how you get there. Maybe air, maybe rail. And you list where you went from and how you're going to get there. So on the Lord's travel voucher, it said 42 generations. Is how he was going to finish this part. But he was directed, this is what your mission is going to be. TDY, temporary duty. So the Lord said, your temporary duty is for you to get there. And when you get there, your job is to change the people. Your job is to change the world. Your job is to die for these people so that I can save them all. And then the last thing, you return back to your home of record. And the last thing you mark on the travel voucher is mission complete. The Lord said to Jesus, you stay there. Don't come back until you say it is finished. Don't come back until you say you got it done. Don't come back until the people believe. Don't come back until you heal the sick. Don't come back until you said, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? And don't come back until the third day is over. And when the third day is over, you can mark on the travel voucher, MC. We all want to mark on our travel voucher, MC. Because once you say MC, that means mission complete. And when you say mission complete, the Lord is going to say, you follow the steps that I've given you. I've told you where to go. I've told you how to do it. And when you say mission complete, I'm going to say, well done.